Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us. That's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, Midnight viewers, to Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. Who is this Father Malone, anyway? Me. And helping me out in all things cinematic is my co-host, Ripley. Say hello, Ripley. Whoa, watch your mouth. Keep the contempt for the audience to yourself. It wasn't the audience. Nice. You want to go first this time? We usually do a TV show, but I think you're pretty excited about your choice. Okay, Ripley's pick. 1982 was a hell of a year for movies. Coppola bankrupted himself building Las Vegas on a soundstage for One from the Heart, which I understand is getting a re-release later this year, and I'll let you know when it does. Swamp Thing made his cinematic debut in Wes Craven's mostly terrible adaptation of the Bernie Wrightson character. Those are probably bad examples. How about Poltergeist, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Blade Runner, E.T., and Cat People? Now, why would a dog pick Cat People? She barks every time she sees a goddamn cat on the TV. Well, she didn't. But I did manage to see her actual choice on a double bill with Cat People at the Medford Drive-In in Medford, Massachusetts. Now, being 9 years old and having no interest in psychosexual drama where no one actually turned into a cat, I spent most of Cat People watching Megaforce, the Barry Bostwick-led superhero motorcycle action flick that was playing on a nearby screen. Although some of Cat People did get through, Annette O'Toole managed to make an impact that I'm still feeling today. I am cuckoo for blue-eyed redheads. But there was no amount of Annette O'Toole or Megaforce that could make me look away once that flying saucer blurred past the camera on its way to Earth and the dread words burned into the screen. John Carpenter's The Thing. Trailer time.
Mayday. Mayday. Anyone hear me? Over. This is U.S. Station 31. You read me? Found something in the ice. We need some help down here. Can anybody hear me? We found something. We found something. We found something.
12 men had just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? He can beat one of those things!
By the way, did you know that they're called trailers because they used to trail the main feature? That's right, you were expected to sit through the credits to find out what would be playing next. Anyway, in 1938, under the pen name of Don Stewart, John W. Campbell had a short story called Who Goes There, published in Astounding Science Fiction magazine. It was a shortened version of a novel Campbell had written called Frozen Hell. It was a tale of American researchers in Antarctica who've discovered an alien in the ice and foolishly thaw it out. It is rife with paranoia as the alien is an expert in imitation. It was first filmed as The Thing from Another World in 1951 by maybe Howard Hawks? That version had a hulking monster in Jim Arness in place of the shape-shifting alien. The second, shall we say loose, adaptation was in 1971 with Horror Express with Chris Lee and Petey Cushing. It's the same movie, just on a train. And this one was definitely not directed by Howard Hawks. Which brings us to 1982, and that drive-in. This was June 25th, 1982. The high temperature in Boston that day was 82 degrees. There were 7 people jammed into that car. You can imagine the teenage body heat being thrown off. But I was chilled from the opening frame. This isn't nostalgia. I'm setting a scene. Get with the program, dog. And speaking of dogs, although he receives no credit, which is criminal, the unsung acting hero of John Carpenter's The Thing is Jed. How Jed is not as famous or Benji or Lassie or that grumpy cat is beyond me, because unlike those animals, Jed had range. He appeared in The Journey of Natty Gann and then headlined White Fang in its sequel. That's 2 headlining characters for 1 actor, and you've probably just heard his name for the first time. Because here's the thing. Literally, Jed is the Thing. Remember that scene where he's slowly moving down the hall to enter a room with total purpose, and then he stops because he gets an idea, and he moves off because he's found easy prey? Good Lord. That's gross, Ripley. Yeah, I get it. He's an attractive hound. Since I'm shouting out the unsung, how about Susan Turner? She built the alien ship we see whizzing past the camera. Or Albert Whitlock in his matte paintings that gave us that ship on Earth. Watch that painting as the sun comes out and drives the shadows off of it. It is sublime. The film is a masterpiece. Now, I remember excitedly watching every critic TV show, local or syndicated, that I could with the hopes there'd be a genuine adult certified confirmation that it was as good as I thought it was. And I was shattered. Then they did the same with Blade Runner, and later that year my jaundiced view of film criticism was cemented when they did it again with Romero's Creepshow. But now, 42 years later, we all know better. And it's still being discovered. Ripley isn't even a year old, and she was riveted. John Carpenter's The Thing, currently streaming for free nowhere, but it is available for purchase. You know this flick, you love it, you deserve a rewatch, and it's worth every penny. Particularly if you live in Las Vegas where it's 120 degrees. No joke. Enough already. We're done. Take us off the griddle. What do we got next? On the tube. I guess it's no longer a tube. It's LCD or OLED or something. Streaming television is the topic, though, and here's where I'm going to cheat, because I haven't been indulging in anything close to new. And it's certainly not an unknown quantity, but it's the quality of the viewing. Look, realistically, do you have 70-odd hours to put aside to rewatch a TV show? It depends on the show, granted. But what if a lot of that show was unsatisfying? I have the answer. Everyone still feeling safely ensconced in the House of the Dragon? It's just next to the House of Frankenstein. That whole block is crazy. House of the Demon, House of Wax, do not go there during the summer. House of the Devil, House of the Flying Daggers, and House on Haunted Hill, which is technically part of the block, but it's way the hell up there. I don't know how the zoning works. Anyway, Dragon House. Ooh, Paper House. Remember that movie? Go watch that one. And House of the Dragon has had a few thrills this year, but it's really just making me want to rewatch Game of Thrones. And I know we all hated the ending. And it needed a whole season of Daenerys Targaryen going nuts before those final 6 episodes. But we all watched for a reason, so I wanted to see if it held up. But it is too daunting. Free time is limited. So of all the character stories and all of the subplots and all of the plots, I had to home in on which was my favorite parts of the show. It's fucking zombies, obviously.
Have you ever seen a dragon?
The dragons are all dead. Been dead for centuries.
The dragons are gone, and the children of the forest forgotten.
The White Walkers have been gone for thousands of years. The madman sees what he sees.
Magic once was a mighty force in the world. And not anymore.
Fear is for the winter, when the snows fall 100 feet deep. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides for years, and children are born and live and die, all in darkness. That is the time for fear, my little lord, when the White Walkers move through the woods.
All the frightening stories we heard when we were young. They're all real.
The Night King is coming.
The dead are already here.
Though these aren't zombies, these are wights. W-I-G-H-T-S. Not the scary color. Zombies are the revived dead that just continue what they're doing in a very hungry way. Even if they have a hive mind, they still seem pretty independent. So thank you, George Romero. You are a true American, and I love you. The undead here on Game of Thrones are revived at the behest of another supernatural creature. In this case, the White Walkers, who are like ice demons. Their history doesn't matter. I read the books too. That's too much to discuss. The point being, these ghouls are effectively marionettes. Which is funny because before 1968, if you said zombie, that would have been the exact definition. Night of the Living Dead changed all that. Thank you, George Romero. I love you. So, as much as I love dragons and Arya and fucking Cersei, oh man. As much as I love them, I decided to watch only episodes involving White Walkers and the whole winter is coming phenomenon. That shaves the episode count down to 14, which is mind-blowing. They appear briefly in the premiere, 2 episodes in the second season, and those are just the White Walkers. We don't get the full might of what's been talked about south of the Wall. So here they are, and I'll try and be quick. Winter is coming. That's the first season 1. Season 2 is Nightlands and Valar Margulis. Season 3 is 2 more Valar Dohaerys and Second Sons. Season 4 has a paltry 1, Oathkeeper. Season 5 repeats this horrible practice of only 1 episode a season, but what a fucking episode. It makes up for all of the waiting. Hardhome. I mean, frankly, you could stop there. That's a proper ending to the series. It was actually the ending I was hoping would happen. Season 6 has just 1 episode again, but it is a heartbreaker. That's The Door. Hodor indeed. But now, in Season 7, it's beginning of a tumble-down. Dragonstone, Eastwatch, Beyond the Wall, and The Dragon and the Wolf. And then 2 for Season 8? Are you kidding? A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and The Long Night. Now, as much as I'm complaining about the paucity of appearances over a 73-episode run, when they fully committed to this plot thread, it was phenomenal. I'd put Hardhome up against the best of not just fantasy TV or horror TV, but TV in general. There's an escalating sense of dread as the enemy approaches, and then you get that apocalyptic final whammy at the end. It's perfect. I doubt this is a new thought on a series from over a decade ago, but the final season should have been nothing but confronting the White Walkers. People complained about the brightness of the final battle. That was not the problem. It was the creators treating this like the Battle of the Bastards. just a one-off corker. And I know this is a human story about the dangers of power and who wields it reflects in our society, and we're going to deal with all of that back at King's Landing. I get it. But Winter is Coming has been echoing as this existential threat throughout every season, even if it's just in dialogue, even if we don't see the enemy that season at all. So the finale, and to me this was the finale of the show, deserves some breathing room. It is chaotically shot, and the editing doesn't help, but then the filmmakers were given a fuckload to try and convey to the audience. This is available on Max, or is it HBO again? I've been hearing things. But the app is still called Max, like a weird uncle who wants you to watch lots of true crime murder docs together. That's where you'll find the Game of Thrones zombie extravaganza. I'll put the episode list in the comments to give you a skeletal leg up. Give it a try. Drop me a line. Tell me how it went. FatherMalone71@gmail.com. That is what's been streaming and got me dreaming. What'd you think of our journey through the undead north? You can't just write off an entire genre. Someday you're going to find a fantasy thing that does it for you. Trust me. It needed more dire wolves. You are something else today. Okay, what's the main recommendation for this week? Our top pick for new to the streaming in cinematic form. Now, I was going to do Tickled, which is kind of ironically a true crime doc, and I will talk about it next week, but after the first two choices, an accidental theme emerged. And that is winter. Cold, cold, cold. And as I said, it is like the surface of the sun in good old Las Vegas, Nevada. So why not lean into the trend and recommend something that reminds you what it's like when an icy wind stabs right through whatever foolish attempt you've made to fortify yourself. Flannel be damned. To that end, our winter in July pick, you would love snow. Now stop interrupting. The obvious choice here would be The Shining, what with the passing of the absolutely luminous Shelley Duvall. But that film is just too unwieldy a topic for one of my weekly couple-of-minute rants, and it wouldn't be the film I'd direct you to see what she was all about anyway. That'd be Popeye. I know Nashville, yes, Annie Hall. Ignore those cries. If ever there was someone more perfect for a role, I don't know, and I don't want to know. In any event, rest in peace, Shelley Duvall. I'd love to recommend Ravenous, the Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle 19th century wilderness Wendigo cannibal film that takes place in the snow, but it's only for sale, and I've already recommended one of those, so instead, and this is a lateral move, not a runner-up move. In fact, it's actually way better than Ravenous. Keeping the wintry military theme, released April 24th, 1992. I was 19 and 2 days old. This is A Midnight Clear.
At the front lines of life, near the end of innocence, came the beginning of manhood. The events that shaped their lives can't help but touch yours.
I think we got a chance to make something good come out of this for everybody.
A Midnight Clear.
Oof, do not let that trailer dissuade you. I guess the marketing department still believed that Platoon was selling some 6 years after that particular movie made it big. Where to start? This is the third effort of one of the most criminally underused, for features, not TV, and exceptional filmmakers out there, Keith Gordon. He's also one of my favorite actors. He's Arnie Cunningham in Christine. I don't think I need to elaborate further. A Midnight Clear is an adaptation of the novel by William Wharton, no slouch, with a screenplay and direction by Gordon and spectacular cinematography by the late, great Tom Richmond. He's shooting snow in broad daylight, and I don't know how he managed the f-stop alchemy, but it looks gorgeous. This is a contemplative war film. Don't expect Saving Private Ryan, but to me it is way more impactful. It's a fairly lyrical contemplation on modern warfare and what it does to our psyche, and it's stacked with a murderer's row of young talent. Peter Berg, Gary Sinise, Ethan Hawke. I can't stop now. I will feel bad if I leave somebody out. John C. McGinley, Frank Whaley, Kevin Dillon, Ari Gross. Love him. I once let him into a movie for free because he was late and about to miss the feature, and I think that's all of them. They used Utah for the Ardennes Forest here, and films like this always confirm for me that this country is so huge and so underused for production. You want to go to France? Go to Utah. And just because there's more thought than bloodshed here, it doesn't mean that this film isn't gripping as hell. Gordon's previous feature was The Chocolate War, which was as assured a film as ever I've seen. And this would be his second film examining groups of young men and how they interact and how they've done so and how they're evolving. It's pretty formative stuff for me, who's always been wary of the whole macho bullshit we're supposed to engage in and tolerate. The choices Gordon makes as a filmmaker, visually, dramatically, if they're not effortless on his part, he makes them seem that way. And I don't want to spoil a frame of it. It is readily available on Prime, a midnight clear. Even if you hate war movies, give this one a shot. No, that's not a war joke. It's not a munitions joke either. Is that a separate subject? Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us here on Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. For Miss Ripley, Jean, and myself are going to say farewell. If you want to hear any of our episodes early from either Midnight Viewing, the Horror Anthology Podcast, or Anthology's Attack, or this show, if you want to get early access and commercial-free or bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/Father Malone. And if money's tightened, god damn it is for everybody, if you could give us a 5-star rating on wherever you listen to this show, we would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I will leave you with the words of George A. Romero, the second time I've done this, because that quote from Dawn of the Dead, he wrote that. Anyway, he used to sign things this way: stay scared.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.